What I'm going to talk about is the way we moved wood back when the river drives were in full force. This occurred in the state of Maine for probably a total of 200 years. It was the great driving force of how we moved wood. The term river drive originated when they first started moving wood from up in the rivers down into the old town when Bangor was the great lumber exporting in the state of Maine. And as the crews went up the rivers, they gradually had to extend out because they cut the wood along the rivers, and then there were no roads at all to start with, and they gradually expanded out into the wider areas. Eventually, the river drives as such moved to small streams and things when they finally went to cutting 4-foot wood. The West Branch district was roughly the size of the state of Connecticut and was roughly 100 miles long by road, and the streams probably carried wood a little farther than that because of their meandering around through the hills and valleys. There were several ways to get into this country, and originally the first one that we're going to talk about is up through Colcagio, where this sign of the good information sat for many years. In fact, I really don't know when it started. And the road beyond that sign went up by the Grant Farm, which is portrayed here, and this was en route to Ripogenus Dam, which is probably the big period of time of business was when the Grant Farm went during the building of Ripogenus Dam, when the Grant Farmers served as a basic headquarters for that operation. This route is, as you came up through from Millnocket, your first view of Mount Katahdin from this particular location was known as Pockwockomus Hill, and it's still as pretty today as it was at this time. This is another route coming in from via Rockwood, and this is the view you see of Kineo on about halfway up Moosehead Lake. This view is from below Ripogenus Dam, the outlet of the dam, and then it goes down through what is known as the Big Heater. This is just a little bit lower down the stream, and that's the Big Heater that you can see down on the lower end of the water. This is a view coming in from over in St. Aurelie, which is on the western end of the entrance into the state. This is a typical sugar camp, as is widely located. A lot of these around through the Northwoods in Maine, and they were pioneered by the Canadians who came in to make maple syrup. Much of this syrup goes into barrels, and it's carefully protected. Each barrel has a serial number, and it is graded and then sold according to the grade in the barrel. A lot of this syrup goes out into Quebec and is eventually transported down into Vermont and sold as Vermont maple syrup. The lower grade syrup was distributed and sold and used down in Connecticut for curing tobacco. You never knew what you were going to encounter from day to day in the North Country, and this particular photo was taken of one of our big telephone lines. The upper cross arm was a new cross arm the day before this was taken. It was put in by the telephone crew. These cross arms were creosoted, pressure treated, and when installed the day before, they didn't get all the lines tied over. The crew came back the next day to finish the job, and there had been a bear climb up during the night while the crew was gone, and sat on the lower cross arm and chewed on the upper one. They could determine this by the amount of bear hair left here and there and the claw marks on the poles. This is just one of the little incidents that happened, and as I went over by there that morning, the crew stopped me to show me the damage to their new cross arm. This is all right. This is a typical horse yarding operation. Picture of the horse at the yard, and a good woods horse could actually drive itself back and forth from the stump to the yard. It'd be unhooked here, return back until stopped by the chopper that was in the woods, reconnected to some logs, brought back out by the horse with no direction, and till the man on the yard would have him stop, and then he would disconnect the tree and start him back in on another trip. This is another example of a yard, a horse on the yard. These were just invaluable animals, and as I said, they literally drove themselves back and forth. Here's another example of a horse on the yard. They were varied, and at this time, Great Northern did not own any horses. These were used on a rental basis, and the crew of the owner was paid by the cord or whatever the amount of wood that the horse produced. This is a typical blowdown, and not a very pleasant thing to encounter for the crews working, but they had to be cleaned up, and usually there was a road established, put through, and then you did whatever was necessary to harvest this mess. This is a winter road as prepared earlier. From first wood was cut, the road was laid out by usually the assistant foreman or the company forester. The wood was cut, harvested, added to these yards, then bulldozed, prepared by freezing up in the winter and getting ready for truck hauling out. At this time we had moved away from loading by hand, and this was a cable crane used for piling wood on the truck. This was another method was a hydraulic crane, such as this one. These were an improvement over the cable crane because the operator had more control over the bucket of wood that went